franchise secrets, Erik Von Horn.
If you're not a part of the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, what are you waiting for? It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. I cannot believe how valuable this group turned out to be. When someone asks a question, the feedback is honest, authentic, very helpful, and it's from multiple perspectives. If you're not sure that you're getting the most accurate information about franchising, then check out the largest, most helpful Facebook group in all of franchising. Whether you're a Z, a Zor, a buyer, or investor, join our free Facebook group at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. I have an amazing podcast with Jesse Cole, founder of Savannah Bananas. He wrote a book called Find Your Yellow Tux. He's got a new book out. I just was asking him question after question from like, what's it like being in business with your spouse? Like long-term versus short-term thinking, branding, marketing, guerrilla marketing, how to be a sponge versus like how not to learn. We went into so many different areas on this podcast. Jesse doesn't get on many podcasts anymore, so I was really honored to have him on. You're going to love this. The guy is probably the most out-of-the-box thinker that I've ever had on the show. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Jesse Cole. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Yeah, excited to be with you, my friend.
All right. So if people are watching, they obviously see the yellow tux. They probably know you from Savannah Bananas or, your book. So give the audience a little bit of your background. Then I got so many different areas I want to jump into. So who's Jesse Cole?
Ben's who's asking. First I'm a husband, a father. My wife and I run the Bananas. We own the Bananas. We have 3 kids, 1 4-year-old biological son, 2 foster daughters. And so we're proud to be foster parents. And we saw a problem with baseball, a challenge with baseball. It was too long, too slow, too boring. And we tried to do the exact opposite. And after sleeping on an airbed 6-7 years ago, having to sell our house and ran out of money. Now we're fortunate to have built a pretty good following and a world tour that I never would have imagined.
What changed? No money to a lot of money and influence and all of that?
Going all in. I think we burned the boats. First when we came to Savannah, I ran a baseball team with Emily for 10 years in North Carolina. Then we went to Savannah, Georgia, where there was professional baseball for 90 years. We came in and we were scared. We had a 24-year-old team president, 3 22-year-olds out of college, and it was me and Emily. I think I was 31 at the time. Emily was 28. So we were scared. We acted like everyone else. We sold like everyone else. We marketed like everyone else. We did social media like everyone else. And we failed just even worse because no one had ever seen our product. So when we got the call that we were out of money and we had to sell our house and empty out our savings account and sleep on an airbed, we said, we just got to go all in. And so we named the team after a fruit, became the Savannah Bananas. We said, we could have a senior citizen dance team called the Banana Nanas. We could have a male cheerleading team called the Mananas. Our mascot could be split. We could have a banana baby before every game where we put a baby in a banana costume and lift them up and sing, "Nah, Savannah." And we said, could we have a banana band? Could we have music videos to Can't Stop the Peeling? We just said, let's be the most fun team in baseball. And at that point, we started creating. And luckily, after all the criticism for naming the team the Bananas and not selling any tickets, now we've sold out every single game since we started. And I think we have a wait list or pre-sale list that's over 200,000 right now, which is pretty crazy.
Did anybody say that's a good idea?
I think some people claim now. We saved all. We actually did a mean tweet video when we first came out with the banana name. And even, just 2 months ago, when we announced that we were leaving our current league, that we had success. We won 3 of the 6 championships and that we were going to do Banana Ball, our new game that we invented, do it all over the world. We got tons of criticism. I mean, people call it Jesse's joke. They'll never sell a ticket. They're going to fail. But as Jeff Bezos says, you need to be willing to be misunderstood. The greatest pioneers, the greatest innovators, everything they do at first is misunderstood because it's different. And then if you keep doing it, all of a sudden you start to prove. What I hope to do is I hope to prove people right. I don't want to prove the naysayers wrong. I want to prove people right. And so the people that believe in us, I want to show that we can do this.
What's the biggest challenge? Like, not even the biggest challenge, but it sounds so easy to be like, because you've had success. Like, when did you not believe in yourself in that? Or did you always believe it was going to work? Even with, whether it's the early on Savannah Bananas or leaving the league.
Yeah, I don't try to spend too much time focusing on what I can't do and what we can't do, and not believing in ourselves and focusing on the people that criticize us. I try to focus on doing the things for the people that, love what we do. And because it affects your mindset. As soon as you start listening to the naysayer, you start listening to all the negative criticism, you actually start doing things that can generate that. And so in a bad way. And so, yeah, I mean, it's for me and Emily and our team, it's just keep coming up to bat. We believe that we learn more than anybody else in sports and entertainment because we try more than anyone else. We experiment more. Every single night we do between 10 to 15 things on a live field that we've never done before. And 9 to 13 of them fail pretty miserably. I mean, the living pinata, the horse head race, the halftime shows, Messy Baby, the Roman candles where a player came up with Roman candles and almost shot one towards the fans. I mean, things are crazy. Players in stilts, he almost fell over when he was hitting on stilts. But we learn faster the other way. So again, we're very clear on our vision, who we are and what we stand for. We are fans first, entertain always. We're trying to create the greatest show in sports and the best possible fan experience. If we focus on that every day, we'll learn. And that's what we try to do.
What does a management structure look like? Like, what's your role in your business, and what's your genius? Ideas,
and vision. So what I believe is that most companies, most leaders, they spend too much time talking about sales, revenue, profits, and growth. I have no idea what's in our bank account right now. I spend zero time looking at what our revenue is, our sales, our profit. I spent all my time coming up with ideas and sharing the vision with our team, with outside people, screaming from the mountaintops on who we are, what we stand for. That's not perfect for everyone, but I'm the creator. Our president, Jared, he is a, executor. He is a, person that doesn't get all excited about ideas. He gets excited about the efficiencies of the business. And, that book, Rocket Fuel, you have a visionary, and then you have, what's the next one? Visionary.
Integrator. He's the integrator.
There you go. That's what Jared is. And that's what Walt and Roy was. That's what obviously McDonald's had with Ray Kroc, and Henry Ford had, and the greatest businesses have that yin and the yang. And so that's where I spend my time, is creating every day.
Early on, you probably didn't have a Jerry.
Jared.
Did you say Jerry?
Jared. No, he started with us as a 24-year-old team president on our first day.
So was he always at that level of president, the executor, the integrator?
No, he's developed as a leader tremendously. I mean, we named him the president so he could get indoors. Like literally, that's the only, to name a president 24 years old. We trusted Jared. He's loyal. We love him. But it was like, if he says he's the president, maybe people will let him meet with them. And so that was part of the strategy. And he's earned that title. And so now, we've read a lot of books together. We constantly read things and share things with each other. So we develop the mindset that we need to have as leaders. We have a same page meeting every Monday. And so we get together on, how is he focused on the business driving? I'm focusing on driving the ideas, the content, the entertainment, and creating the greatest show in sports.
Was there ever a time, and because there was a time for me like this, I'm with you on idea, vision, and for me, strategic relationships. Those are some of the key things for me that I'm really good at. There's a time in my career growing up as an entrepreneur that I wanted to be more of the operational person. I thought entrepreneurs were great operators. And so ideas and vision, I'm like, that's a dime a dozen, but realizing later on, no, that's where my zone of genius was, but that was the gold. So any point in your kind of career where ideas and visions, you kind of discounted that? Or is that always like super high value to you and you understood the value of that? Well,
at first I did operations. I sold sponsorship. I sold everything. I did everything, and I was burnt out. And then I found out what gives me energy. And, I have my energy list, and I believe everybody should do an energy audit, not what they love, not what their passion is, what gives them energy. What gives me energy is creating, sharing, and growing. So if I'm coming up with ideas, I'm sharing it with others, sharing with our team, sharing it outside. I'm growing by learning from other innovators, the Walt Disneys, the P.T. Barnums, the Jeff Bezos, the Steve Jobs, learning from that, putting it into ideas to develop the business. That's where I can make the biggest impact. So it was tough. 2015, I woke up every morning, not on purpose. I woke up and I was focused on other people's problems, other people's priorities. I would go through social media. I would look at news, look at ESPN, and I lost the days. I didn't win the morning. So I read Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod and started developing my own mornings. And so now every day I write in my journal, I write 10 ideas every single morning. I do a thank you letter or a thank you video. I read, and then I go for a run while listening to a business podcast or something that can inspire me to think differently. And that's every morning. And I have, 3 kids under 4, and that's at 4:30 till about 6:30. I spend 2 hours doing it to get into a good spot every day.
Hal's the real deal. Do you know Hal?
Barely connected, but yeah, I followed him. Yeah.
Dude, he's the real deal. We're in a group called Front Row Dads together, and
John
he's just.
Broman, know him as well.
Do you know? I'm sure you know.
I went on
Vroman.
his podcast many years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Awesome. I'm going to be seeing him next week in Austin. So such a great guy. So here's the deal with the Franchise Tribe Mastermind. It's full of a bunch of successful franchisees across many different industries, many different brands, and you get to be a part of that. Now, if you've had any level of success in franchising, you've probably been around top performing Z's in your current brand. So think about that. And if you could do that with 40 plus different brands, industries, franchisees, that's the value in the mastermind. I bring in some of the best speakers in the world. We talk about some topics that will never be talked about anywhere else. So if you're interested in being a part of a group like that, check out franchisetribe.com. All right, let's talk branding and marketing. What does the world say about branding and marketing, and what do you say about branding and marketing?
It's funny. I very humbled by David Novak, the former CEO of Yum Brands, and KFC and Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, and we've connected. I sent him a thank you letter because his books really impacted me. And he said one of the kindest things I've ever said to me. He's like, "You're one of the greatest marketers of all time," and I laughed at it because I've never considered myself a marketer. I don't even help lead a marketing plan. I don't even think about marketing. What I think about is attention and ideas. So we're more interested. We have an attention plan. How do you create attention? That's the PT Barnum mindset. And so every Monday we get together, our creative team, and come up with OTTs, over the top ideas. And we follow the SNL model. We don't learn from other sports teams. We learn from WWE, Saturday Night Live, Cirque du Soleil. And we come up and we pitch ideas, 5 of us, and we come up with crazy ideas, put them on a wall. We start writing them. We have a table read with our team on Wednesday. Thursday, we start getting the props, setting it up. Friday, we do rehearsals. Then Friday night, before we open the gates for VIP, 150 people. And we do all of those in front of that group. And the director of entertainment's watching to make sure it goes well. I'm watching the fans to watch how they react. Just like Saturday Night Live at 8 p.m. on Saturday. They do it in front of their audience, and they cut skits, and they adjust skits, and they edit skits. So we follow a very creative, we don't focus on necessarily how we're selling people. No one wants to be sold. People want to buy. So we put all of our energy into entertaining. If you look at, our social media, it's all videos of us having fun and showing the experience, which then drives followers. And now, to have over 5 million followers is, more than any Major League Baseball team. It's crazy.
So how do you tell the normal people listening? They're like, oh yeah, works for baseball. Of course it works for baseball. How does that work in my business? I got a boring business, it's always been done this way or whatever. So how does attention beat marketing in, a fitness concept or a painting concept or?
Well, I've been fortunate to get the opportunities to speak to, again, I was lucky to speak at a Rotary 5, 6, 7 years ago, and no one in Savannah wanted me to talk because we named the team after a fruit. But now I've been fortunate to speak in front of many billion-dollar household names, in front of crowds in the thousands in NFL stadiums. And I share, obviously, I share what's in our newest book, Fans First. I share the 5 E's to create raving fans: and eliminate friction, entertain always, experiment constantly, engage deeply, and empower action. And with those, everything starts. The starting point of all innovation is to put yourself in the customer's shoes and look at what are the friction points in the experience. And if you can eliminate the friction or attack the friction and be a friction fighter, you can start creating an experience where then your customers will share it with everybody. So whether you're, in the legal field, obviously, people call and you're charged by the minute, and it's just brutal. That's a huge friction point. In baseball, too long, too slow, too boring. So we try to make it nonstop entertaining. So when you create an experience, you focus on eliminating friction, then all of a sudden you do that, and your customers will start sharing with others. And then you can even film part of your experience. If you do really cool things when people buy, or their invoices, or their voicemails, or the hold music, which we do all of that, people actually share that with others, and we share some of it, and then people are like, that's really cool.
Social media, what's your you're good at getting attention. What does your social media team look like at headquarters at your,
So in 2018, we started with an intern. We had one intern. We had a videographer, and now we have marketing director. We have a coordinator. We have 3 videographers, creative director, and we have a team of about 8 to 9. But our team's a lot bigger than that. And what I mean by that is I had a big session with all the players the other day. When I met with some of these major league teams, which again, we're so fortunate that major league teams are calling us to play at their stadium. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
No way.
And so, I met with this major league team and they said, man, we wish our players would want to do social media. Our players just don't. They want to, get their treatment and work on their baseball, and they don't want to do any of that. I was like, well, we have a very unique opportunity to do all of that. So I had a session with our 20 players, our professional players that are going on tour to 33 cities. And I said, guys, we are all PCPs. I was like, what the heck's a PCP? I go, it's a performer, creator, and producer. I go, every day we're thinking about what kind of performance can we do? What kind of video can we do? How can we create that? And how can we produce it ourselves and share it? So now we have a marketing arm, creative arm, which is 50, 60 people going strong. And so now when you look at what's going to happen, we just had this conversation last week. So now you'll start seeing on all of our platforms, we'll be sharing all their stuff to build them up to create bigger characters, and our content will explode, which we'll learn a lot from and hopefully develop even more fans.
What are some of the professional, I'm sure you have conversations with some of the professional players and maybe in other sports and some behind the scenes type stuff. What are they saying about you? Like, what are some of the private conversations that you have with some of these professional athletes, if you have them, that they're like, they love what you're doing, they question what they're doing, or they have ideas for you? Like, do you have any of those kind of private conversations with some professional athletes?
Yeah. Now, again, a year ago, I don't think any major league players reached out to us. Now, Jake Peavy plays for us, Cy Young Award winner. Jonathan Papelbon pitched the last 2 games for us. Johnny Gomes, Erik Burns, Josh Reddick, Bill Lee. And so when I talk to these guys, and we've got reached out to by a few more over the last couple of weeks, which has been funny because I got a direct message. I'm like, oh, you were a World Series hero in with the Red Sox. Like, why are you reaching out to us? But what I've learned in talking to these guys, it's the way they wish they could have played. You look at Jake Peavy, one of the biggest competitors, Cy Young Award winner, 2 World Series championship. He came and pitched for us in Birmingham, Alabama on the World Tour last year. Pitched with his gold glove on, which I didn't even know. I thought it was like a trophy. I didn't realize it was an actual gold glove. He's pitching with his gold glove and he's smiling. He's laughing. He's enjoying himself. The same thing with Papelbon. Took the mound in a kilt and started doing the shipping up to Boston little crazy Irish dance and then threw a pitch while doing it. It was crazy. But it's all these guys, what baseball is right now. It's so serious. It's so competitive. It's so much about winning and losing because there's so much dollars involved. Ours is just being a kid again. And I think a lot of the players realize the impact of that. As I've talked to a few more this week, they want to join us and just have fun.
So your motto is, if it's normal, do the exact opposite. Like, what's one of your greatest examples of doing the opposite of normal?
Oh, geez. Well, look at it's almost everything. So every ticket in Savannah is all inclusive. You can't come to our ballpark in Savannah without all your burgers, hot dogs, chicken sandwiches, soda, water, popcorn, dessert, everything. No ticket fees, no convenient fees for $25 total. All right. So we sell 0 advertising. There's no ads or billboards at our stadium. 0. One of the dumbest moves you could ever make 2 weeks before a pandemic, because we literally made that decision, and obviously the world shut down. But we don't believe anybody comes to our ballpark to be sold, marketed to, or promoted to. Instead of a coach, we have a breakdancing coach. Instead of a young dance team, we have the Bananas senior citizen dance team. We have players on stilts. We play in kilts. Our umpire was on Ellen DeGeneres. We found him, and he literally will twerk strikeout calls and do the floss as he's striking someone out. We have a male cheerleading team, the Bananas. They are known as the Dad Bod Cheerleading Squad. I mean, I could keep going. It's just that actually on our website, we have what makes us different on our About Us. And I think every company, every business should have that. And if it's not just like, oh, we're a little better at this service, we're a little faster at this service. No, what can you be the only one? What makes you different? Because we don't have to market, because people are talking about our meaningful differentiators. What's
your biggest fear as you're doing so many things different? What's your biggest fear? What might keep you up at night?
Settling, becoming the Harlem Globetrotters.
Who's not settling out there, in people that you look up to, their peers, their people that you admire? Like, who's not settling out there?
The greatest is my biggest, role model. And looking at it right now, I got a whole section in my house, in my office, Walt Disney. I mean, you think about what he did. His dad told him he'd never make it as an animator or a cartoonist. He went and did that. He made it. Then he was creating tons of shorts, animated shorts that was making a killing. And he said, no, I'm going to create a full-length animated film that's never been done before, that will cost millions, and that will bankrupt our potential studio. He did it. Snow White in 1937. It was the biggest movie of all time at the time. Then he's like, I'm gonna involve more music. I'm gonna do music. Then I'm gonna build Disneyland, which every amusement park operator, including Roy, his brother, including his wife Lillian, said, you will fail. Even after he proved with everything else, they said, you will fail. There's no way. You can't just have one entrance. Why are you spending so much money on landscaping and a castle? Like, where are all the thrill rides? What are you doing, Walt? And he said, no, it's going to be the exact opposite of every other amusement park. That's why it's going to work. And so when you think about that and you think about what he's done, it's constantly challenge, never settle, keep pushing the envelope. And even when he got doubted, I mean, how do you continue to doubt Walt after what he did in the studio and built Mickey Mouse and Snow White? Like, how do you continue to doubt him? They're like, we're going to keep doubting you. Like, what does he have to do? And so like, that's why when we left Coastal Plain League, our college summer league, even after we built the Bananas to sell out every game, to do a world tour that sold out, to have millions of followers, we still got doubted. And it's the same process of Walt Disney. And I believe we're going to continue to get doubted. And if we stop getting doubts and criticism, you know, we're playing it too safe.
Were you starting to get doubts before you made that last move? And was that part of like, why did that come about? Like leaving that and kind of starting your own league?
Every decision we make is fans first. So everything starts with that. Every decision. So what happened over the last few years is as we built Banana Ball and everyone wanted to see that, when we were in this league, we would play in other cities and we would go to Wilson, North Carolina, Forest City, North Carolina, Asheboro, Wilmington, and they would sell out from fans all over the country that wanted to see the Bananas because every game was sold out in Savannah. We sent our director of entertainment, we sent t-shirts because people were disappointed. We were actually losing fans because they were driving hours paying. I mean, I know I'm at a family that was paying, I mean, at our regular games, fans can pay up to 10 times face value on StubHub. It's crazy. But they were paying $200 to go to road games where there's no show, there's no entertainment, there's nothing. And so sometimes you have to willing to put yourself out of business and disrupt yourself for what you believe is your future fans. And so we had a lot of people say, I'm not going to go anymore. I want the real competitive game. But we're never going to be the best baseball team. I mean, yes, we won 3 championships in 6 years, won more games than anyone else in the league because we had fun. But what they want to see is they want to see something different, unique, and memorable. And so we leaned in on that, made that move, and got pretty good criticism. Let's put it that way.
So how hard was that for you? Like, I mean, or what was the hardest part for you? Because was there something that you were doubting making that decision? Because that's a big decision.
I wasn't doubting it, but yeah, it was all of our decisions, we focus on long-term fans, not short-term profits. Short-term, big loss. Literally, college players, you can't pay them because it's an NCAA violation. So we went from 0 player payroll. I think we're at, for our players this year, 1.4 million, which is 10 times what any independent teams play and what minor leaguers make. I mean, we are going all in. So bad business decision in that sense. But if we have our players all in on creating content, creating a great show, performing, we believe in the long game will win. So yeah, the toughest part is just the personal attacks, mostly to me, not my wife, mostly to me. That's tough. It's tough to handle, but I just had to reframe and say, focus on proving people right, not proving people wrong. When
did you reframe that? Early on, or was it?
Yeah, probably the second day. The first day was tough. So it's probably the second day. And Emily's always been that for me. I mean, when we named the team the Bananas, we got ripped apart. And, you know, I don't think anybody, all these fans, they don't put the thought I put into what we're trying to do. I mean, I'm literally writing every day. I mean, behind me is hundreds of books that I read 100 books a year. I mean, I'm learning very, very fast. And I have a much bigger vision because I'm surrounding myself with Walt Disney, Bezos, and Steve Jobs, and big dreamers and big thinkers. So, you know, you could challenge me, but you haven't put the time and thought and energy into what we're trying to do.
So reading books, like you say, you read 100 books a year. What does reading a book look like to you? Is that listening on audio at 10x speed? Is it skimming some of it? Or is it reading it from chapter 1 to chapter 10? Is it taking out the highlights and whatnot? Or is it having somebody read it and give you the cliff notes? What does reading the book look like to you?
Yeah, I was going to grab a book, but yeah, it's constantly, so I read every morning and then I read every night. So I get up and I put my vegetables in. My vegetables are big thinkers, innovators, inventors, and I go to sleep after, you know, me and Emily talk. And, you know, if we do watch a show, which very rarely happens, but I'm trying to do more of that because that's what normal people do, I think. So if we do watch a show after that, I always read a book before I go to sleep. So I'm putting that in my mind before I go to bed. I earmark all the pages, either bottom or top. and then I go through it again and do a book report. Now, being honest, I'm not doing all the book reports. What I'm trying to do is one book, one lesson. I learned this from John Burke from Trek. People ask him, hey, what'd you learn from The Infinite Game with Simon Sinek? He gave a BS answer, he told me. So he's like, just come up with one lesson that you can remember from each book. And if you do that, that'll make a bigger impact. So I started doing that, like with Ride of a Lifetime and Kevin Hart's book, which is crazy why I'd read Kevin Hart's book, but there's actually some really good nuggets in there about how to create fans. So that's where I'm going now when I read.
So what's the difference in how you read these books instead of doing a report coming up with one thing? Like how was that made reading the book different?
Well, I think what Steve Jobs said, if you can simplify things, you can move mountains. And I think the hardest that we do is we add, and which then causes confusion or causes you to not learn the lesson. So I have to go through the book again and say, what thing from this book will I actually take action on? Will I actually remember, and it will guide me? And so if I'm able to do that, that forces my mind to focus, which is very hard for a creator sometimes.
What are in the last year, what's been the book that's had the most impact on your business or personal life?
Basonomics, Ride of a Lifetime, and probably the marketing lessons learned from the Grateful Dead, or everything in business I learned from the Grateful Dead. Those three, because we're trying to create fans. So the Grateful Dead was better than anyone. They had the highest grossing tour act of all time, and when they were performing, and they had no singles until Touch of Grey and whatever, when that was 1987, I think. And then Basonomics was about creating the flywheel. So how does Amazon create the flywheel that keeps your business going? We have an amazing flywheel now. We've built that because of Basonomics. And then finally, Ride of a Lifetime, the Bob Iger story. And he had three priorities when he took over. It was high branded quality content, it was embrace technology, and was global reach. He did all three of those by Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilms, 20th Century Fox, and starting Disney Plus. For me, it was the high branded quality content. We have to build high branded quality content with everything we do and put it out in the world. And so, yeah, each one of those books made a big impact. I was on that one. I hit that one. Let's be honest.
You what?
I hit that one. I was on that one.
Yeah, you were. That was good. Documentaries. Do you watch documentaries?
Yeah, love it. Love it. Yeah, I watch like Coldplay did a great one, Head Full of Stars. And there's a clip of him, Chris Martin, when he's like 20 years old. And he goes, just watch. In 3 years, we're going to be playing in front of the biggest crowd in the world. Just watch what's going to happen. And he said it into the camera. We're going to be huge. We're going to be big. And 3 years later, they showed him on a stage. And, I don't know where it was, but it was thousands and thousands of people. I love that. I love the dreaming. So I watch a lot of those ones on big acts, big performers, to see what their vision is, how they do it, how they act behind the scenes. That inspires me. Imagineering. The best one is Imagineering, the documentary on Disney that literally shows the opening episode shows Walt Disney walking the orange groves and saying, this is where we're going to put Disneyland. And it shows how they built all their parks around the world and imagined things that you never would imagine with theme parks. That's fascinating. 6 episodes on Disney Plus.
So I'll watch that. I'm going to watch that with my kids. We have a surprise Disney World trip coming up. So make sure you don't tell them.
When are you going?
We're going November.
We're going in December. We're doing our first cruise too, to see that experience.
Oh, awesome. What do you suggest? I mean, we've been to Disneyland, Disney World before, but going into it as, somebody like myself, listening to you love Walt. Like how should I go in and experience Disney World that might be different than I've experienced?
How old are your kids?
8, 10, and 12.
Yeah. So obviously if you're going with the kids, the key is I watch where my kids' eyes light up. It's so intentionality on why they have balloons and why they have bubbles, because they know kids want balloons and bubbles. But when you first walk in, when you get past, you come through the little tunnel, this is at Disney World, Magic Kingdom, and you come around and you're going down Main Street, take your first right. And you take your first right, go down, and there's no one there. It's a side entrance. It's a side where they have the parade come out, and just listen. Just listen. Do you want to know what you're going to hear?
Yes.
Right. So what you'll hear, they have all the windows are actually like windows of businesses that would have happened in the 1930s, 1940s. So one is a singing and dancing lesson. It has the name of what the person who's doing it. And they have audio playing in a long loop of people getting dancing lessons and singing lessons in a corner where 1% of 1% of 1% people actually go down there. That's the attention to detail that Walt focused on. And that is a little thing that when you start seeing that, you'll see it everywhere.
Wow. All right. I'll do that. You are big on learning. You have, in your book, chapter 3 is basically be a sponge. Give us some lessons on learning, and maybe like where people think they learn, but they're really not, they don't have the mindset of a learner. They don't have a heart of a learner. They're not a sponge, but they might even think that they are.
Yeah, it's again, I tell anybody they start a book and they don't enjoy it, stop reading it. If you force yourself to read something you don't want to enjoy, it's going to shut you down and you're not going to pick up the next book. And I've done that a few times. I'm like, this book is too analytical, too many numbers. That doesn't speak my language. And it's so funny because Jared, our integrator, he's like, dude, this book was awesome. I'm like, what are they even saying? I don't get this. Like, where's the dreams? Where's the vision? And so we all, different ones speak to us in different ways. But yeah, I think one of the lessons that I've learned is if you want to learn, it means that you really care. And if you don't want to learn, maybe you're in the wrong profession. Like if you really don't want to learn, do you really believe in what you're doing? And so I'm obsessed with learning because it's going to make the biggest impact on the most amount of people. And the way I learn is I go deep. Everyone has their own style, the book of the month, whatever this one is something else. I've read every single book on Walt Disney and Disney World. I've read every single book on P.T. Barnum. I've read every book and every article about the Grateful Dead. I've read everything about Dave Matthews Band because they're still one of the highest grossing bands of all time. And they haven't had a single since Crash Into Me back in the 90s. Like, it's crazy. I read everything I can find about Cirque du Soleil because they took their tour all over the world and are still thriving. So I go very deep in the areas that matter most to our business. And I'll still come across other things, but I think go deep into what really interests you and learn everything you can about it. And then that's when you can really actually start applying it.
Attention franchisors, if you are not bringing in many of the right franchisees, sales are slow. It's stealing too much of your time as a founder trying to award franchises to the right franchisee. There's a better way to do it. That's why I started the Franchise Sales Mentor. If you want to have access to the information, the techniques, the ways that the best franchise sales organizations are awarding franchisees, then you might want to check out the Franchise Sales Mentor. The reasons that franchisors join is because they want access. They want access to my Rolodex. They want access to my connections. They want access to shortcut both short-term and long-term success to increase enterprise value to their brand. Let's go back to you. We were talking about content, and you mentioned your team early on, and you mentioned a videographer, and now you have a cajillion videographers. So I don't think a lot of people, business owners, probably have ever hired a videographer. Why hire a videographer? Like, what does that do to your content? Like, convince somebody. And this might not be the right frame, but convince somebody that they should hire a videographer.
You got me doing exactly what I will never do, and that's try to convince anybody of anything. I speak our truth. For us, a videographer has been one of the biggest game-changing things that we've done. What does a videographer do? What do they? Well, it's an easy barrier of entry. So, for instance, there's college students that are interning like crazy. I mean, I hired one to help me with my own Yellow Tux content back in the day. And I've done that. And, you can do that for not a ton of money, but also give them the experience that they want. So again, you got to have a vision. So for instance, if you don't like being on video, if you're not comfortable being on video, maybe do a podcast, maybe write on Medium or LinkedIn. Look at, maybe you're all into pictures and you're amazing. Maybe you hire a photographer to really take pictures and then you share those to make a story or tell a story or a lesson. So you got to find what speaks best to you. But a videographer is the best way at this point because you can turn videos into audio. You can turn audio into written word. You can turn videos into pictures. You can turn video into everything. You can't turn the opposite all the time. It spreads much further. And obviously between YouTube, which is the greatest search engine, videos are extremely searchable. And now they're doing shorts, which is obviously competing with TikTok. So I am 100% bullish on video.
I want to talk about, I love how I knew as soon as I said convince, like he's not going to want to convince anybody of anything.
Well, we don't try to sell anything. I mean, no one wants to be sold. People want to buy.
Go deeper into that. Like why?
It's something I've learned. So think about this. Have you ever flown on an airplane and at the end of the ride, they try to sell you a credit card?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time. And so I've already paid for a flight with you guys. All right. I paid for a flight. Now you're trying to sell me a credit card. So I've asked probably 3 or 4 times. I asked, one of the flight attendants, I said, how many do you sell every flight? They go, maybe 1, maybe 2 if it's a good one. And I go, 1 or 2. In my mind, I don't say this to them, but I'm like, you're upsetting 200, 300 people to sell 1. And what their CEO is saying, hey, all our flights, we're getting thousands and thousands of credit card sales. That's driving our business by, 187 million. Don't stop that. But it's also upsetting 187 million people. And so the reality is I try to put myself in the customer's shoes. I don't want to be sold. And I would argue no one else does. My 4-year-old son, when we try to do a show on YouTube, he goes, Daddy, I hate ads. And I go, yeah, you're 4 years old and you understood to hate ads. Like, no one likes being advertised to, sold to, or marketed to. So why would you try to do that? Because you get 1% of people that want to buy? Or do you create entertaining, educational content that then people want to buy as opposed to being sold?
So we all have customers, and you listen to your customers. You changed your whole, a business model in baseball based off of what customers hate or fans hate. When did you realize that you were onto something with that? But then I guess the better question is, like, did you think you were as good as you are today back then? I'm like, I really understand my customers. How did you get to understand your customers early on, and how does that leveled up as, years later?
We're still in the first inning. We're going to be in the first inning for the next 20, 30 years. We're focused on the next quarter century, not the next quarter. So how do we know? Well, one thing we don't do any surveys. Surveys are BS in my mind. You do a survey, you get 1%, 5% of your people to fill out a survey, which is biased. They're trying to say things that either, it's not true. It's such a small sample size. So, and you go back to Henry Ford, if he asked people what he wanted, they'd say they want faster horses. No one's going to say they want a car because cars weren't invented. So we don't do surveys, but we watch our fans. So to give you an example, 2 things we do. We go undercover every night. Someone on our staff goes undercover in disguise. We park with the fans. We walk in with the fans. We sit with the fans. We eat with the fans. We stand in line with the fans. And we pay attention to what the friction points are in the experience. Walt Disney did this at Disneyland when he was still alive. He had an apartment above the fire station and would walk the park. And he said, whenever I go on a ride, I'm always asking what's wrong with this thing and how can it be improved? When he went on the Jungle Cruise and he got off and he was furious. He goes to the director of the park. He goes, how long is the jungle ride supposed to be? He goes, 5 minutes. He goes, mine was 1.5 minutes. The guy sped through it. I didn't get to see anything. It was brutal. You better believe next time Walt came on 2 days later, it was 5 minutes. You don't realize that until you go undercover. The next thing we do is we watch our fans. So when we came up with Banana Ball, we realized that fans were leaving. So we started taking video and pictures of our grandstand every 30 minutes, starting at 5:30. When do people get up? When do they leave? When do they go? When are they leaving? And we realized at 9 o'clock, 9:30, was an exodus of like thousands of fans. So we said, we're going to make a 2-hour timed game, and we want to create an experience that you want to stay for. I mean, how many people go to a movie and they said, oh, that was a great movie. I left in the middle. Like, you don't do it. You don't go to a concert like, oh, that concert was wonderful. Yeah, I left an hour in. Like, you stay to the end. But in baseball games, you leave early because you've had enough. So we're trying to create experience. We haven't had enough. And that's why we developed Banana Ball with a 2-hour time limit. And now we realize, we keep track, 98% of our fans stay to the end.
Who have you spent time with in the past, year or 2 years that you came away from that meeting, that time with them, that dinner, that you're like, holy cow, I just learned so much from this person? Maybe they were a well-known person. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was a fan or somebody that spent time with fans. But like, anybody that you've spent more than an hour with and you're like, holy cow, that was an amazing 1 hour.
Yeah, I mean, I had a dinner with the former vice president of marketing for Chick-fil-A, and it was outstanding because he said that, they spend their time, they have meetings, and they don't ask how do they drive more revenue. They ask how do they create more fans, and we've built that into our ecosystem. He said they literally think, what can they do on the drive-through to create fans? Not can they raise prices and drive more revenue? And obviously, Chick-fil-A, what I learned from him, which is fascinating. So the average, this is about 3 years ago, the average fast food restaurant does about $800,000, $900,000 a year. The gold standard McDonald's does 2.5 million a year. At this time, 2-3 years ago, Chick-fil-A was doing 5.5 to 6 million a year, and they're closed 52 days out of the year on Sundays. So I think they're doing a pretty good job creating fans.
Where do most people miss creating fans? Like, what are some easy misses that business owners, like think about the small business owners, what are the easy things that they're doing to miss it?
Policies. Look at the policies you've always done. This is how we do invoices. This is how people buy from us. This is what our voicemail is. This is what our hold music is. This is the way we do the sales process. Like American, I don't want to say that. Like an airline, shoot, I'm already like an airline who does the same thing over and over again. All right, I lost that. Shamerican Airlines. I need to give it a disguised name. I'll call it Shamerican Airlines. So the same thing. So if you realize that and you start to look at that, that's when you can realize that, hey, we're doing things that are upsetting, disappointing. Write down all the normal things in your industry. So if you're a small business owner, whatever you're doing, look at all the normal way of doing things. Shep Hyken said, fine is the F-bomb of customer service. If you provide a fine experience, you're in trouble. So look at the normal and say, what would be remarkable? And then maybe go further. What would be unforgettable? And then map it. I mean, we have 7 stages on our experience, 7 stages that we map. And so that's very intentional.
If you could ask Walt Disney a question that you read in a book or heard in a documentary, what would you ask Walt?
That's a great question. Probably should think about that. Maybe I don't spend much time thinking about that because I don't think he's going to come back. But if he were to come back, I'd probably spend some more bandwidth on that. Well, first of all, I'd play catch with him on Main Street. I think that'd be really cool. I'd want to play catch with him on Main Street and do something that's fun at what he created. He told us, what's next. I'm so fascinated by someone that sees the world differently. He wanted to create the experiential prototype community of tomorrow. He didn't want to build another theme park. He wanted to create a different city. He kept looking for that bigger playground to play in. And so I would ask, where does he develop the big vision and the mindset of what's next to change the world? But Walt, unlike many people, has shared so much of what he believes in, and you can see it. It's how many companies now, I know Disney's having troubles right now, and after Iger left, I understand that, but how many companies are still thriving 60 years after their founder is gone? It's rare. And so that says a lot about what he built in his company.
What's life like at home for you with the kids versus, Jesse on a podcast, at work? What's family life like?
With 2 foster kids, a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old daughter, and then a 4-year-old biological son. Wild. I think I personally take joy at giving them experiences. So they travel with us on tour. They go to many cities. They went to 4 or 5 cities last year. I take them constantly to, parks and playgrounds and trampoline parks and all that stuff because, that brings me joy and brings them joy. It's the same thing Walt Disney was looking for. When he sat on his park bench and just watched his kids and he just sat there, he wanted to be a part of it with them. So I'm constantly looking for that. So Saturdays and Sundays are days with the kids where every Sunday I take the kids to breakfast and then we go do an adventure. And Saturdays we usually try to do one adventure as well. So that's my life with them right now. And I'm still learning, but there's a lot of great moments.
What's the best adventure that your kids would say this was the best adventure? I know they're young too. The kids are young, but what do you think the best adventure?
Well, I mean, again, I'm a broken record now, but everyone told me, again, story of everyone tells you something and then it goes the other way. We took them to Disney World last year, and they have the Skyliner that goes between the hotels. So a lot of the hotels, I'm not exaggerating here. They wanted to ride that for hours, and it brought so much joy. And we sat there and they just watched and they got so excited. And, some of the rides obviously at Disney were too much for them, except for our foster daughter, who's crazy in a fun way. But we rode that all the time and I was blown away. I mean, the simple room, we stayed at the Art of Animation, and the room had the Lion King, and the bed came down and it had Simba and it had like Mufasa. And he was like, oh, I've got the Lion King bed. And you see that joy and wonder. So many adults, they have this expectation of everything being perfect. And if there's not waters in the room, if there's not enough towels, they see imperfections. What kids see is they have wonder in their eyes and they see the amazing things. And I think when I was going to Disney with them every day, I saw that wonder and joy. And so, yeah, we're going all in. We're doing a cruise and Disney, I think 7 days in December, because there's nothing greater than that. And they talk about it to this day. And they were 3 years old when they went.
That's awesome. All right. Last kind of question, short-term thinking, planning, vision versus long-term. I know you're a long-term guy. We talked about it before we hit record. We've talked about it on the podcast. Why are people short-term thinkers?
Because it's measurable. Can't measure in 25 years, 30 years. That takes some time. You can measure what revenue you bring in today, what revenue you bring in this quarter, what profits, but you can measure all that. We're driven by that. You think, let's go back to school. Everything we were evaluated was measured. You weren't evaluated. You took a test. It didn't matter in 2-3 years. It mattered right there. What's your grade? How are you getting that immediate gratification? And so I think so many leaders, people, we've been trained that way. We've been led that way for kids on how to, get that immediate gratification, that immediate reaction, that immediate jolt of dopamine. And when you can realize that that's fleeting and focus on, go as crazy as morbid is, go to your deathbed. Think about, how do you want to be remembered? And I wrote my first book, 6-7 years ago, I wrote in my obituary, and that would change now. I was, we didn't have kids. It's a different world now, but that would change. 6-7 years ago, when I was in my early 30s and I wrote that, it makes you think differently. I don't think anybody's going to think when they're on their deathbed, how much money they have in their account, how many cars they have, what they've bought. They're going to think about the memories, the moments, the joy they had with their closest people in their life, their family, their friends, their coworkers. So when you look at that, it makes a lot of decisions much easier. And that's what's helped guide me and my wife with everything we do.
All right. Last kind of questions. Have you funded everything yourself? Have you brought on investors?
No. Yeah. We went to $1.8 million in debt when we started. So yeah, we've funded everything ourselves. We have no outside investors. We've had no money put into the team. We're doing it ourselves, and we learn faster that way.
What are those, the relationship between you and your wife? You talked about her a lot on here. Like, what advice would you give or experience would you share on how to be spouses and amazing business partners? Amazing spouse, amazing business partners.
Be clear on what your roles are and what your boundaries are. So as someone who thinks about the business nonstop, I do jump into her part of the business probably too much. I've learned to trust her and let her do it. She doesn't come in, Jesse, change the show. We need more fire. Like, she never comes and says that. But if she did, I'd be fired up because we need more fire. I couldn't agree more. But the reality is we have boundaries. You do what you do best, and you focus on that, and you support that person and what they do best. And so for me and Emily, where we struggled with this in the beginning, I jumped into everything she was doing. Now it's like, Emily, you do what you do best. She's the heart of the team. She's involved in hiring. She has 1% of the top line budget to spend any way she wants on taking care of our people, from cruise ships to, sending someone to their bucket list trip in Ireland, to turning the ballpark into a spa, to taking everyone shopping at the outlets with $500 gift cards for Christmas. She's done all of that. Go to it, do it. I love it. And so that's where we're the best.
Dude, I love it. What's your first book, Find Your Yellow Tux? What's the second book?
Fans First. Change the game, break the rules, create an unforgettable experience.
Get both of them. How can people find you, Jesse?
If you take a left on the Interstate 95, you're going to see a guy with a yellow poncho. Then you'll see a little outhouse. There'll be me kind of waving at that point. No, it's you search Yellow Tux, you'll find me very easily. And if you search Savannah Bananas, we're all over.
I love it. Thanks for coming on.
No, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.